Now, the opening lines of your book talk about 60+% of companies failing due to people issues. Can you explain what that really means and how do you improve your odds there besides having these kinds of conversations?
Sure, that's it's actually possibly one of the most misunderstood things in the book is that first paragraph. First off, it's research that was what sparked for me my interest in this domain. But the core, and we can talk about like the people who I already mentioned, one of them who was a key person in doing that research. What it is that of the companies that fail, that 65% of those reasons for failure are because of the people problems. What I hear a lot of times is that people misquote it and say that 65% of companies fail because of it. What the research is, Bill Salmon, the key mentor I mentioned from HBS, who was the one who did that paper. It was a 1989 paper. And he was taking a look at what was back then a major black box. The name of the paper is "What Do Venture Capitalists Do?" It was very much not understood about what goes into the job of a VC. And so in that pretty long paper, Bill and his co-author were laying out everything that goes into getting deal flow, evaluating deals, negotiating terms, like all of the ins and outs of venture capital. They fortunately along the way also thought to ask, while we're in here doing all of these discussions, looking at your documents and other things like that, let's take a look at these companies that failed. There should be very few of them because as a venture capitalist, you're only taking the top 1% of what you look at. You are already filtering for the highest potential in the extreme, the original 1%ers, if you will. And so there's going to be very few failures, right? Actually, no, we have a lot of companies that did fail, Bill. Great. Can you tell me about the reasons for those failures? And when Bill was asking the question, he did think, as I would have thought also, especially coming from the economics direction that he was, that there's going to be some things around financing or what today we'd call product market fit issues or other things when you're going from a project team into a full company, some of the other things that we've already talked about. And indeed, 35% of the reasons for failure were those items, but there was one that swamped all of the other ones. This happens to just be one line in the paper and one number in a table, but he found that 65% of the reasons for failure were the people problems, the soft, squishy human issues, the interpersonal, several of the other things that we've talked about were what were bringing the company down. And when I was heading to academia, I took a look at, because I had experienced it firsthand myself, when I was doing some founding stuff, when I was a VC and seeing founding teams come through, I was trying to look at what does academia know about these soft, squishy people issues that are the real reason for why companies fail, and that if we could change our knowledge of that and change the decisions that founders are making, then we can really move the needle on founder success. And I found that academia knew just about nothing about it, going back to the art that it was back then, and then the science that we've been able to bring to it since then. But that is actually in terms of the research that sparked it. It was Bill's early paper, and that is really focused on the 65% is of the failures, not that 65% fail because of it. About 15 years later, there was another paper that was done by two other economists that essentially asked for part of their paper the same question. They took a very different approach to it. They were taking a look at, so as opposed to Bill, who was looking afterwards, ex post at what had happened, these researchers, Kaplan and Stromberg, took a look at ex ante, the memos that VCs were writing up about the potential deals that they would make. What were the risks that they were highlighting in those deals? How many of them were product market fit issues and operating issues, other things like that, and how many were team and people issues? And what they found was remarkably similar, even though it was a very different approach 15 years later, et cetera. They found that 61% of the reasons for expected failure were when the people on the team side. So that's what the core of that research, and my wanting to delve in and help founders be able to deal with this biggest source of risk is what had led me to spend the last couple of decades looking at that.